Welcome to another episode of Smash Writing. I'm your host for today, Paul, and today we are going to finish what we started over the past month, and that is, in this edition of Chills and Thrills, we are talking about the Cecil Hotel. Now, do a little recap. There has been a couple of shows throughout the last couple of years regarding this hotel, Cecil Hotel. One, Ghost Adventures edition, two shows, one on Discovery Plus, and then the Netflix series, The Vanishing at the Cecil Hotel, which mostly focus on one issue that was wrong with the hotel, the jinx, the curse, whatever you want to call it. We know that if you believe in ghosts, there are always places that are haunted. But if you're just a casual viewer and you're sitting there going, if you watch something, we always know when Hollywood's in studios and stuff like that does based on true stories. How true is based on a true story? We know in Hollywood that they will take one little element of a story, maybe the most gruesome part of the story, or something like that, and they'll make a whole movie out of it. And because one part that they took from a story, they say based on true events or based on a true story. In reality, it's nowhere near fact. It's more fiction than fact. So when I started researching Cecil Hotel, I wanted to, after I seen Ghost Adventure, I'm like, is this place really crazy as they say? Or is this all for effect? Is Cecil Hotel a haunted place? Is Cecil Hotel a bad place where people go to die? Is there some type of curse on Cecil Hotel? Now, there is different layers that we have to look at. And I think we do have to go with the most obvious answer regarding the deaths at Cecil Hotel. It is not made up. There have been numerous suicides from basically almost as early on within a couple years of its existence. So, if we go back to the Cecil, talk about the Cecil Hotel. Cecil was built, here's a little history fact. Cecil was built in 1924 by three hotelers, William Banks Hanna, Charles L. Dix, and Robert H. Scoops. Now, this was a destination spot at the time. Cecil officially opened on December 20th, 1924. And basically, it ran good. It was the hotel that, if you were going into LA, this was the place to be. This was the hotel. And the in LA. Now, so sometimes you will get an occasional death or something simple like that. But the question becomes, one or two is one thing, but what happens when it's 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18? You start to wonder, is this place actually cursed, jinxed, or what? Sorry, I got a clogged throat this time around. So, we know that there are a number of victims that, if I'm counting it right, I believe it's 18. 18 deaths since 1927. The first one came just literally I would say 25 months after it opened. The first one was a suicide, Percy Cook. Story goes with Percy Cook that he shot himself in the head while he was in his hotel after failing to reunite with his wife and child. He was rushed to the hospital and he died. It's a sad thing. A suicide. I guess he wanted to be with his wife. It was a no, and he knew he lost everything. Now we were going to jump ahead. So, a simple death. Not simple, it's sad, suicide. Now we jump to 1931, November 19th, 1931. W.K. Norton, 46. Another suicide. Who was found in his bedroom. Basically, he poisoned himself. Then we jump to just a year later, September 1932. Benjamin Dudich, age 25, suicide, gunshot to the head. This is ruled as suicide. However, there was no note to why he wanted to commit suicide. July 1934, Sergeant Louis D. Borden, 53, suicide, slit third. In late July, Army Medical Corps Sergeant Borden was found dead in his room at the Cecil. He slashed his throat with a razor. Borden left several notes, one of which cited poor health as a reason to his suicide. 3 years later, March 1937, Grace E. Margot, death. She fell from the building. She fell from a 9-story window. Her fall was broken by a telephone wire which wrapped around her body. She later died at the now demolished Georgia Street Receiving Hospital. Police are unable to determine whether Margaret's death was the result of an accident or a suicide. 1 year after that, Roy Thompson, 35, death. He fell from the building. United States Marine Corps fireman Thompson jumped from the Cecil's top floor and was found on the skylight of a neighborhood building. He had been staying at the Cecil for several weeks. 1939, May of 1939, just a year and a half after Thompson, Irwin C. Neblett, age 39, ingested poison. He was a Navy officer, was found dead in his room after ingesting poison. And this is where, the streak, the 30s, and we'll talk about this in a minute. January 1940, Dorothy Seeger, 45, ingested poison. She was a teacher. Seeger ingested poison while staying at the Cecil and was reported by the Los Angeles Times to be near death. No further reports were published about her condition. Her death was listed as January 12, 1940 from findadeath.com. Interesting. I never ever heard of that site. But anyway, skip ahead 4 years. September 1944. This one is a little bit more icky to talk about. So let me try to read from my notes about what I wrote down regarding this one. So there was a woman named Dorothy Jean Purcell. She was 19. Purcell was sharing a room at the Cecil with her boyfriend, a shoe salesman named Ben Levine, who was 38. Purcell, who apparently had been unaware that she was pregnant when she went into labor, she later testified that she did not want to disrupt the sleeping Levine. So she went into the bathroom where she gave birth to a baby boy. Thinking the baby was dead, she threw him out the window and he landed on a roof of a building. Purcell was charged with murder. 3 psychiatrists testified that she was mentally confused at the time of the incident. In January of 1945, 3 months later, she was found not guilty by reason of insanity. The victim in this one was Purcell's unnamed newborn son. Skip ahead to 1947, November to be exact. Robert Smith, 35, fell from the building. He died after jumping out of one of Cecil's 7th floor windows. Then there was another kind of brief period of normalcy. October 22nd, 1954, Helen Gurning, 55, fell from a building. Caused death, fell from a building. San Francisco stationery firm employee Gurning jumped from the window of her 7th floor room and landed on top of the Cecil's marquee. 1 week prior, she registered at the hotel under the name Margaret Brown. One of that, adding homage to Molly Brown, who I believe her real name was Margaret Brown anyway. All right. Once again, a layoff period of about 8 years. February 11th, 1962, Julia Frances Moore, age 50, fell from the building. She jumped from the window of her 8th floor room, landed on the 2nd story interior light well. She did not leave a suicide note. Among her possession was a bus ticket from St. Louis, 59 cents in change, and an Illinois bank book showing a balance of $1,800, which is more than I have in my current bank account. Later that year, October 12th, Pauline Oten and George Giannini, 27-67, with respect to suicide, fell from the building. Now, this one is a unique one, too. Because, so let me read what I wrote down from the story. Oten jumped from the window of her 9th floor room after an argument with her estranged husband, Dewey. He had left the room prior to Odie's suicide, and Odie landed on a pedestrian, Giannini, killing them both instantly. As there was no witnesses, police initially thought Oden and Giannini committed suicide together. However, it was soon determined that Giannini had his hands in his pocket at the time of his death and was still wearing his shoes. Had he jumped, his shoes would have likely fallen off during the fall or upon impact. His hands would have not been in his pocket. You talk about something crazy like that happening. You are walking down the street, minding your own business, and maybe you just happen to look up, heard all screams, whatever, or just looked up, and here comes a full-out body. It's just falling, and you're like, oh, maybe I should move, but too late. 2 years later, June 4th, 1964, Pidget Goldie Osgood, 65. She was murdered, stabbed by Jacqueline B. Ethan Linger, who was acquitted. She was sick. Pidget was 65. Story goes, a hotel worker Sarah Osgood, a retired telephone operator, did in her room. She had been raped, stabbed, and beaten, and her room was ransacked. Osgood was well known around the area and had earned a nickname because she fed birds in the nearby Pershing Square. Near her body was the LA Dodger cap she always wore in a paper sack full of birdseed. Hours after murder, Ethlinger was seen walking through Pershing Square in a blood-stained clothing. He was arrested and charged with Osgood's murder, but later cleared of the crime. The murder remains unsolved to this day. Now, one of the biggest gaps in this dark history is basically a 11-ish year layoff. December 20th, 1975. This woman is still unidentified woman jumped from her 12th floor window onto the Cecil's 2nd floor roof. She had registered at the hotel on December 16th under the name Alyssa Lau and was staying in room 327. I'm guessing they don't believe this was her real name. we'll get into why some of these they use different names in just a minute. Now here comes the big gaps. From 76 to late 92, everything seemed to be normal, but then a body of an African American man was found in the alleyway behind the Cecil. Police said he had either fallen, jumped, or been pushed from the hotel's 15th floor. The 20 to 30-year-old male has never been identified, so he's between 20 and 30. Then, of course, we get to the February 19th, 2013, Eliza Lamb. We all know the story, which was, her body was found in the water tanks. She obviously did have bipolar disorder. She didn't really take her medication left and right. People thought it was a murder because there was a miscommunication with the latch of the water tanks, because the story originally came out that the maintenance guys said that the latch was closed, and he opened it, and that's when he discovered, because people were complaining about the water. In reality, it was a miscommunication. He actually stated that the hatch was already open, which means that she went in and she committed suicide. Then, 2 years later, in 2015, the body of a 20-year-old man was found outside the hotel. Some conjectured that he may have committed suicide by jumping from the hotel, although a spokesperson for the county coroner said the cause of death had not been determined. And that was the last one. Now, I believe in 2017, they closed for repair starting 2017. Now, throughout the thing, there's also they changed the name to Stay on Main. And they did that, I believe, in 2011 to obviously get away from the previous somewhat deaths. Now, question is this place haunted? What actually happened? Why did this happen? Why does this hotel have so many murders? The actual answer of all of this is really, you just have to look at the timeline of stuff and the neighborhood. Both play a very factoring role in the situation. So let's get with the neighborhood and talk about some of these earlier deaths real quick. You can sit there and say the Percy Cook one was more or less a random situation. It was. Take a look at the deaths 31, 32, 34, 37, 38, 39, 40. During the early part of the 30s, and you got to look at the era of the Great Depression, which was between 1929 and I believe 1932. During that time frame, a lot of people lost their jobs. A lot of people fell on hard times and didn't know where to go, or they never actually recovered to the life they once had prior to the Great Depression. These suicides could be contributed to the idea that the Great Depression happened and it just caused them great, title says it all, depression. And during that time, you had a lot of mass suicides everywhere. You jump ahead to the 44 one, the unborn child one. Now, once again, I label this one as a random, she panicked. Maybe there was more to the story. And she brutally threw her baby out the window. No doubt you had to be insane. But we also got to remember, too, Cecil Hotels is in part of the neighborhood that's commonly nicknamed as Skid Row. Skid Row is a I'm trying to find the right words to say it. I guess it's a crime-filled area with a lot of homeless and everything. At one point, the neighborhood where Cecil was at was booming just fine. When the Great Depression hit, it did it did change the landscape of that area. And when it did that, the neighborhood went downhill. A lot of crime started to happen. Homeless people, like I said, a lot of people never recovered from the Great Depression in this area. You know, in this, like I said, in this area, you had a lot of crime, a lot of, you know, issues like that. Obviously, this changed the landscape of the neighborhood, but the hotel stayed there. The hotel was not only a hotel, but it also became an extended stay type of hotel, which obviously brought in, you know, maybe some of the drug dealers, some of the more homeless people that could just afford a couple dollars a night for just to have a bed. But see, the hotel was smart enough to not to advertise where it was at. So when you seen it online, which I never looked it up, so I can't really say this, but from reviewing the Lisa Lamb Vanishing at Cecil, I kind of got this feel from it that if you're not from LA, you're not going to know what you're getting yourself into. And they did interview people regarding this situation that they were kind of shocked that they were paying this good money for this hotel, and they kind of got this hotel that was an extended stay hotel type of place that was in a bad area. It kind of blew their minds and honestly scared them. So, and then let's also talk about there were two famous murderers that did in fact stay at the Cecil Hotel. Obviously, the one being Richard Rodriguez, the Night Stalker, and then his copycat Jack, who idoled him and pretty much put on such a show that he rode with the cops to do interviews with prostitutes who he ended up killing, everything like that. This is all true. This hotel is not cursed. It's placed in a bad area, and unfortunately, there are probably trapped souls in that building. But every suicide, every disappearance, or every murder is different from the next. And you do have to understand it's not a paranormal type of curse. It is just because the area, what attracts it to it, and everything like that. I am glad you guys got to kick back and listen to me rant about how crazy this Cecil Hotel situation really is. Everything you heard about Cecil Hotel is true. It is one spooky ass place. It's been closed since 2017, where they were going to remodel it, and it was supposed to open in October of this year. I don't know. Last time I checked, they said it was suspended. I don't know if that's due to COVID, or this building just might have to be let go. But until next time, guys, bye bye.